Well, that brings us in to the rest of these small forwards that we probably won't see as much of, but they are still on a full contract. So we got to talk about them, Ethan. And inevitably there will be rest days, maybe for Harrison, or just injuries that pop up here and there. And Julian Champagne at the forward position, whether that's the 3 or the 4, will probably be the guy who slides into that role if there's like I said, if there's a rest day for Harrison or somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, Julian, we've said it once, we've said it 1,000 times. As a third stringer, I really, really like him. He's 6'7", he's long, he does play defense. He's not the greatest defender in the world, but he is physical and he's capable, so that's great. And he also hustles. Offensively, his skill set is shoot the ball when he's wide open, Jude. And he's got surprising athleticism, but he never really puts the ball on the floor to dunk, so that's not exactly his strength either, unless he's in transition. So uh, what were we gonna say?
I was gonna say one thing. I was gonna say he actually had some
He
pretty
had some
nice
dunks.
dunks, but they're not often.
No, they're
But
not
I
often.
was gonna say that as kind of like I hope we can see another Julian poster. You know what
Yeah,
I
we'll
mean?
probably get one or two, but he's not crossing anybody
For
up
sure,
and yamming it.
absolutely.
He's getting wide open backdoor cuts. So at 7 points a game last year, I mean 37% from three. He's a solid piece to kind of fill in the gaps, and I think honestly he'll play better in that role where teams aren't necessarily looking for him. He can kind of take people by surprise and just take advantage of the spot minutes that he'll get.
I couldn't have put it better myself. And I feel like when we first brought him in, that's kind of a little bit what we saw. And then when we're
Hmm.
starting him for an entire season,
You see more of the holes, right?
right. And the other thing we forget about Julian, he's like 22, 23 as well.
23, yeah.
So I'm not trying to say that we're going to see a massive jump or anything from Champagne this season, but I also do think that, as young as he is, he's still improving and growing as a player. So if we can see, just a little bit more, I think really the reps that he's gotten, as well as again Harrison Barnes and CP3 coming in, I think they're really going to help teach him the little things, as well as just having more NBA seasons under his belt, knowing how to play off the ball next to a Victor Wembanyama, and another season getting coached by Greg Popovich. If we can just see a little incremental improvement from Julian, less mistakes, being more aware, like I said, kind of being that connective piece, not to say the same thing with all of these guys, but it's so important, especially when it comes to our defense, because we were very disconnected on
Hmm.
defense. And then offensively, as we've talked about, we really weren't even running, sets that often. You know what I mean?
For
So
sure.
with Chris Paul, that's going to change things a lot on the offensive side of the ball, as well as Stephon Castle, too. But the main thing with Julian is kind of like you said, you know, just be that 3-and-D sniper. And if you have a lane to go to the rack, go yam it down like you did a couple times. But yeah, just being that, filling in the edges, if you will.
I like that. Marginal. He's marginal.
But again, like our guy Drew King said in the comments, I'm very glad we kept Julian because, like you said, as a third stringer, especially after having a season of reps, in a
Hmm.
starting lineup, very valuable, as well as his positional versatility as well. Because he's a guy who could also play the 2 if we need him to, if there's an injury
And the
there.
four.
Well, that's what I was saying, right? Because earlier we were talking about him at the 3 and the 4,
Yeah,
and
and the
then
two.
so he's just again a very valuable third stringer to have because inevitably there will be injuries in the NBA.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And the contract he's on. Gotta love that.
Oh, love a good long-term contract with no money in it.
Very high value for what Julian Champagne brings to the table. And that brings us into probably, I guess I don't want to say most intriguing player on the team because that's not necessarily the case, but most interesting, like I know I called Malachi like the curious case of Malachi Branham.
Hmm.
I'm not going to say that for CD because he's just going into year 2. And also the other thing about summer league, like I don't want to make a complete excuse because there were some things he played, you know what I mean, even after Stephon did, and there were some things that didn't develop against other summer league teams and that we would have liked to see. But he was kind of coming off of an injury going into summer league. I do want to just say that at least because that is, there. But yeah, I mean, I know, like I said at the beginning of this episode, he's probably going to be in Austin for most of the season. But what are your thoughts on Sidy Cissoko being a full roster player on this team?
Remember when in 2K, my league way back in the day, you would sign someone and it would say you have to assign them a role, like
Yeah.
star, starter. At the very bottom, it was prospect.
Uh-huh.
That's CD Sissoko. I think we cannot expect any contribution from him in the actual regular season this year unless we are just awful again. And at the very end of the year, we give him some spot minutes. But you're right. I want to say that he had the injury in summer league, so that is a kind of an excuse, and it is a valid excuse for why he didn't play as well as we would have liked to have seen him play. But his only positive thus far has been as a connective piece on offense, which is hilarious. 'Cause that's the negative for everybody else.
Right.
But offensively, he is connective piece. He can't really shoot. He's not a great finisher yet, and he can't dribble great. He's a better dribbler than Jeremy was early in his career, but he can't dribble great yet. And he's really only going to score in transition off of dunks. And
Right.
to his credit, he does dunk them. He does not lay them up softly. He yams them down, which is great. I love to have that from a very athletic wing kind of combo playmaker wing build. He's Boris Diaw, but with more muscle and athleticism. Defensively, I like what I saw. You know, he's a physical defender. He's a capable defender. He's a hustler. He puts in the effort where other guys do not. And he is a connective piece again, which is great. It's just all the other skill sets that he is yet to develop, at least by our eye test. But again, he was injured. So it's kind of hard to fully judge him. But I'm sure Jude's looking forward to a full G League season from him where he will be all over those box scores. I just know you will.
We're going to see so many dunk highlights.
Oh,
And
man.
don't get me started on that starting lineup of Jamari Booyah,
Ooh.
David Duke Jr., Sidy Cissoko, Harrison Ingram,
Ooh.
and I don't know, maybe Charles,
Mensa?
maybe I was going to say maybe Mensa. I know he got cut from the training camp roster. I could see him on the team. And our boy Charles Bediako.
Oh,
We
yeah.
cannot forget he is still an Austin Spur. At least he was at the end of last season. I'm pretty sure he'll be back. And oh my gosh, Serge Abari Rice off the bench is the sixth man.
Ooh, we can't beat it. Cannot beat it. That's a championship G League team if I've ever heard of one.
We need it. We need it. Oh my gosh. When they play, I got to figure out what the Hawks. I got to figure out what their G League team is. I know the Hornets are the Greensboro Swarm. Let me
Mm.
see. I got to figure this out. Because if we get Dom Beasy, the College Park Skyhawks, okay? If we get Dom Beasy versus that team, I may just cry.
That would be crazy. You know what I
But
just realized we haven't seen in a while? Sorry, go ahead and do your CD Sissoko stuff.
no, you're good. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Go ahead. Might as
When you
well.
when you said Bediako, I was like, what happened to Kemp Birch? And I just had to like Wikipedia him real quick. And he just never played for us. He went overseas.
Yeah. No, and hey, shout out Kim Birch playing for
Yeah.
Team Canada in the Olympics, baby.
Shout out him. I didn't realize that he actually never wore a Spurs uniform.
Am I tripping here?
Hmm.
Spurs made a huge trade for a 7-foot stretch five from the Celtics, so he is going to ball. Maybe that is a G League guy because he says G League champs. I'm ignorant there, Gregory, but you probably know. I feel like you know what you're talking about.
Put it in the comments, my friend.
Because they can make trades in the G League. So
We'll see. He'll put something in there.
Carsit Collins says Kim Birch is a Spurs legend.
Damn right he is.
Just like Chandler Hutchinson, but not as much of a legend as my boy Don Barlow.
Mm.
Robert Ball asks, did another team pick up Don Barlow? Yes, the Atlanta Hawks picked him up on a two-way. But look, when Charles Bassey, no, I don't want to say that. If somebody goes down for the season, we know who we're calling. That's all I got to say.
Damn right, baby. Damn right we are. We'll give you all your first back for Don Barlow.
We're getting 2025 first for Don Barlow. Oh my gosh. Okay, seriously, I wish the best for Dom, and I will be paying attention to him for sure. And in 2027, when him and Drew Eubanks come back, it's going to be a great day for us, Ethan.
Shout out my guy Drew.
Okay, but back to Sidy Cissoko. To talk about just, I mean, I'll wrap this up pretty quickly. Offensively, really, the entire arsenal still needs some work. Not to say there's not potential there in areas you mentioned, like there's potential as a handler, as a wing combo guard. Obviously driving to the rack, he is tenacious. He is a physical presence. He's imposing. He can dunk. We need to clean up finishing at the rim, with layups, stuff like that. There's
Mm.
really not too much of an in between game that we've seen. And unfortunately, the shooting did not look the way that we would like in Summer League. I'll just put it that way. And defensively, like you said, I really don't have too much to criticize him there. Here's the one thing I'll say, and we still unfortunately saw it in Summer League and really throughout the G League season last year: fouls.
Oh,
We
yeah.
just we just if he can, like, even if he still fouls, like, I'm not mad at that, but we can't be fouling out. You know what I mean? Or getting close
Yes.
to it every game, because then if you're fouling out like that, it's taking you off the floor, which then it's like that's your main strength, is defense. But even fouling aside, really, like, he is, an aware defender. He is his physical presence, makes him a solid on-ball defender. He's had some really nice highlight blocks. Defense is definitely SidyCissoko's strength.
Mm. Agreed. I agree with Drew King as well. I wish he could at least make free throws, Drew.
That's all we're asking, because he can get fouled driving to the rack.
Correct. And dunking it over anybody.
Exactly. We want those and ones too.
CD is
I
deadly
just
from 0 feet.
But once you get out from 1 foot away from the rim or further, he looks like a baby gazelle learning to play basketball for the first time. As much as I use the baby gazelle reference for Victor sometimes, just whenever it came to, the balance and things like that, in like the first month or two of the season, I like this reference here for CD as well, because he's someone who can put the ball on the floor. It's just not as clean as we'd like it to be at this point.
Correct.